All right, tonight we're going to be looking at exponential growth, which you've already seen actually, and exponential decay. And decay versus growth. So here, over here on the right, this red line right here represents exponential growth. Here, this is the formula that it represents, where I have the starting amount here at 2, that's my A value, and then it grows at this rate. Here, my exponential decay starts at 2, that's my A value, and it goes down. Notice that with exponential growth, I have a number, my B is greater than 1, because it starts at 100% and goes up. Here, my B is less than 1. It's only half. So here, my rate is falling by that amount, and it will be exponentially getting smaller. All right, let's look at some practical areas where we get exponential decay. So remember that when we looked at an exponential function, we looked at the function y equals a times b to the x power, where only b is raised to the x power, where a represents my initial amount, b represents my growth factor. And what we noticed from the ones we've done so far is that my growth factor is always greater than 1 if I'm dealing with exponential growth, because it's always 100% that I start with, and that 100% is what increases. So I'm always going to deal with my b being greater than 1 if I have exponential growth. So if I'm thinking in terms of this, when I have exponential decay, my b is the only thing that's going to change. My b, instead of being a growth factor, is going to be a decay factor. I mean, that's what we call it. Dun, 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 decay. Okay, and so if I'm decaying, then I start with my initial amount at 100%. But if it's decaying, then it goes to 95% or 90%. And eventually it's going to get to 0%, right? So my decay factor is always going to be less than 1 if I'm dealing with exponential decay. So greater than 1 means exponential growth. Less than 1 means exponential decay. All right, now let's look at some real world scenarios. All right, let's look at this scenario. Since 1980, the number of gallons of whole milk that each person in the United States drinks each year has decreased 4.1% each year. In 1980, each person drank an average of 16.5 gallons of whole milk per year. Okay, so I'm dealing with since 1980, so that's going to affect my starting time. And in 1980, each person drank an average of 16.5 gallons. And I know that it's decreasing 4.1% each year. So since it's decreasing a percentage, I'm dealing with an exponential decay. Decay because it's decreasing, exponential because it's a percentage. So the first thing that I have to do when I'm solving a word problem is always going to be to define my terms. I have to know what kind of function I'm dealing with. And again, these are some little helpful pointers. But then once I know I'm dealing with an exponential function, the next thing is to define my terms. So what is my y value? Well, let's see. I've got a couple of variables. I've got, since 1980, this is time. I've got the number of gallons of whole milk. So I've got gallons of milk that have been drunk. I have a percentage that something has decreased. And I have this amount from 1980 right here. So I have two different variables. I have time and gallons of milk. Which one of these is going to be my y or my x? Well, think about it in terms of dependent and independent. Does the number of gallons per milk affect the year? If there's 20 gallons of milk drunk, then is it time to move to 1981? If we drink 30 gallons of milk, does it mean it's time to move to 1982? No. The number of gallons of milk do not affect the time. Time affects the gallons of milk. So in 1981, it's going to go down by 4.1%. In 1982, it's going to go down another 4.1%. So time influences gallons of milk, meaning that time is my independent variable. Remember that when we talked about x and y, that your x variable is your independent and y was dependent? X influenced y. So whatever's influencing your other variable is your x. So here my x is going to be years since when? Well, the beginning year is since 1980. And my y value is going to be the other variable that I've got going on over here, this gallons of milk that are influenced by the years. All right, so then my a is going to be what? A is your starting value. Oh, good, you recognize it's your 16.5. And hopefully you recognize that because that was 1980, which was my start value, my number of years, that's why this is your A. B is the amount that I'm increasing or decreasing. Here I'm decreasing, it's decay. So it's decreasing 4.1%. Let's make a note of that. All right, so if we think about this in terms of a percentage, in 1980, I have 100%. I have 16.5 gallons. 1981, it's going to go down. What percentage is it from 1980? Well, if it's decreasing by 4.1, then the amount in 1981 is going to be hopefully you got 95.9%. And the next year, it's going to go down another 4.1%. So this is 1981, this is 1980. 1982, it goes down to 91.8% from my original amount. So because I'm decreasing, I need to think about making this percentage the amount that I'm subtracting from 100%. So since 1981 is the first year, then I need this percentage as my decay factor. So think of your decay factor as subtracting from 100. And what did we find that was? It was 95.9%. This right here is your B, not this. This tells me how much it's decreasing. It's how much I'm subtracting from 100%. So my decreasing factor is a percentage of 95.9. Now remember, whenever I plug B in, I've got to turn it into a decimal. 95.9% divided by 100. And what do you get? Well, hopefully you got 0.959. This is the number I use to write my equation. So now knowing this, once you've defined your terms, the next thing you have to do when you have exponential decay was to subtract your decreasing amount from 100. Just like before, we had to add our growth amount to 100. It's the inverse now. And then lastly, you had to convert that to a decimal. Now I've got all the parts to make my equation. So let's write this out. Y, or gallons of milk, equals 16.5 times my 0.959 to the x value, where x equals the number of years since 1980. So now you've done the first step. Let's look at how much milk does this predict Americans drink now? Well, if I want to look at how much we drink now, well, to find that, I would need to subtract the initial year from the current year, or the year that is being asked for. If I want to know how much milk we drink now, predicted by this formula, I would need to subtract my initial year, which is what? Well, let's look back up here at my equation. What was the first year? Oh, 1980. So I want to subtract that from the current year. So I need to start with the current year. So 2000 and, oh, right, it's 2018. And I'm going to subtract 1980 from that. How many years have elapsed since then? Well, hopefully you noticed this was 38 years ago. So again, which variable is years? Well, that would be my x value. So I'm going to plug this into my equation in place of x. And you're going to get something like y equals 16.5 times 0.959 to the 38th power. Remember to do this part first and then multiply by this. Or just plug it all into your calculator. And what do you get? Hopefully when you plugged it in, this is what you got. If not, double check that you plugged everything in the right order, that everything's multiplication except for your exponent here. And you might need to use parentheses around this. So this equation ends up predicting the amount of milk that we would drink now, and that's a big decrease from that original 16.5 gallons. It would be curious to look up and see how much milk is actually being consumed and how accurate this equation was. Bonus points if you actually look up how much we drink anymore. All right, I'm going to give you a problem to do. If you get stuck on any one of these parts, you need to rewind the video and watch the part that applies. Maybe take better notes and practice doing your problem alongside this problem. Please go ahead and complete this problem on your own. Go back and rewatch this video. Maybe take better notes if you get stuck on this. Let's look at this one together. This is a fantastic real-world application for exponential functions. They're used all the time in medicine and in science. So here we have the half-life of a radioactive substance being the length of time it takes for 1/2 of the substance to decay into another. To treat some forms of cancer, doctors use radioactive iodine. Cool factoid. The half-life of iodine is 8 days. All right. Let's write that down on our papers. That's really important. So let's continue. A patient receives 12 millicuries, which is a measure of radiation, for treatment. How much iodine 131 is left in the patient 16 days later? All right, let's come back up. Let's reread. The half-life, this is a new term for us, so we want to write this down. The half-life of a radioactive substance is or equals the length of time it takes for 1/2 of the substance to decay. The half-life is the time it takes for half of the substance to decay. So we're going to be dealing here with an exponential function with half-lives. And it's going to be an exponential decay scenario because I'm not growing, it's decreasing. And it's going to decrease exponentially, which we're going to see here. So the half-life of iodine is 8 days. So it takes 8 days for 50% decay. A patient receives 12 millicuries. By the way, it's named for Marie Curie, who received the Nobel Prize in Physics and Chemistry for her pioneering work with radioactive elements. So, another interesting factoid. Back to my problem. It takes 8 days for 50% decay, and this was equal to 1 half-life. So how many half-lives are in 16 days? Well, 16 days is 8 divided by 2, of 8 times 2. So this would be 2 half-lives. All right, so in 2 half-lives, how much millicuries of iodine are left? Well, if it took 8 days for 50% decay and I start at 12 millicuries, I'm going to go down after 8 days to 6 millicuries. It might be easier to see this in a table. Half-life, number of days, amount of millicuries left. So day 0, when she's first treated, she has 12 millicuries. I don't have a half-life yet. First half-life is 8 days later, and that's a 50% reduction. So otherwise known as multiplying 12 times 0.5, which is going to give me 6 millicuries. The next half-life is going to be 16 days later, where I'm going to take a 50% decrease again. So I'm going to take this 6 and I'm going to multiply it by 0.5, and that's going to give me 3. All right, so now on your own, I'd like you to answer questions A, B, and C. Remember that a half-life is always a 50% reduction. How many half-lives of iodine-131 occur in 32 days? Suppose you start with a 50 millicurie sample instead of 12 millicuries. How much is left over after one half-life? What about after 2 half-lives? Lastly, write an equation for the 12 millicurie and the 50 millicurie scenarios, using what you know about exponential equations and especially exponential decay.